Hi, welcome to this lesson. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about knots. You know, there are a couple of knots that are very important for you to learn how to tie. One of those is called the improved clinch knot. Been around a long time. In fact, it's the one that I've used virtually, my whole life actually. And I will tell you that, yeah, there are knots that might be a little stronger perhaps, but the reality is I don't remember the last time I ever broke the improved clinch knot. When I was fishing, I broke my line because I didn't pay enough attention to maybe a weak point in the line. I can't tell you the last time I ever broke it at the knot because I used an improved clinch knot. That's how strong it is. So what you want to do is you want to take your line and take whatever you're trying to tie on, whether it's a hook or a lure, stick it through the eye, let's say of a lure for example, stick it through the eye of that lure and bring enough line through that it gives you enough line to work with. And at this point, we call this the tag end. In other words, this is the end of the line. This is the line that goes to your fishing reel, okay? And at this point, we want to start wrapping the tag end around the main line, and we have to go at least 5 times. If we go less than 5 wraps, the probability is very strong that it will simply come undone while you're fishing, and you're going to lose not only the fish but your lure because it's going to come untied. If you go more than 8 wraps, the chances are pretty good that you're going to break your line. So the magic number is 5 to 8. So what I've always done my whole career is I've simply done 7. I guess one could say, well, that must be good luck, right? Lucky 7. Well, it's lucky from this standpoint. If I miscount in my wraps by 1, either way, I'm still okay. If I miscount going up, I still got 8 wraps and not 9, so therefore I'm probably not going to break it. If I miscount going the other way, I have at least 6 wraps, and so I'm still okay, right? So the number 7 for me was always the right number because no matter what, and if I'm in a hurry and I miscount, I'm still okay. Now, as I wrap this around, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Now, in that process, I formed a loop. When I made my first wrap, I formed a loop right at the eye of the crankbait, for example. In other words, if I'm tying onto this and I stick my line through that and I bring it back, as I make that first wrap in my 7 wraps, that very first hole that I created right there, I want to take the tag end of that line and I want to stick it right back through that very first loop that was created, which is right next to where you're tying your line, like the crankbait for example. I want to take it right back through that loop. Now once I've done that, that forms a big loop, right? Once I've taken that tag line back through there, I've got this giant loop. And all I'm going to do then is bring it right back towards me, right through that giant loop. So I've taken 7 wraps. I've taken the tag end line through the initial hole, if you will, that was made when I made my first wrap. I've taken it back through that and then right back towards me through the big loop that was created. Then what I do is I cinch both those down. And if this was real fishing line, what I would do is I would wet it. Okay, I'd wet it. And then I would begin to cinch it down, keeping the tag end tight and gradually sliding it. It's almost like a little slip knot, and it just goes real snug against your fishing lure. At that point, I'm going to cut off the tag end because I don't need a big old line hanging out there. And if I'm really experienced at tying this knot, I can go down to about a 1/16 of an inch. If I'm not, I'm probably going to do an 1/8 of an inch just in case when I set the hook it might slip a little bit more. I don't want it to come untied by the tagging because the tagging came out of it. Now, why do I wet it? Well, the reason I wet it is because as you cinch that down with it, you won't be able to tell this physically, but actually in the real world you're creating heat on that line, and that heat is going to weaken that line. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's monofilament or some other fluorocarbon or whatever. That's what's going to happen, and you're going to weaken the line. Then you got a chance to break it. So always wet the line before you start cinching it. Pull in the tag in, keep it tight, and keep cinching it down, 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 and pretty soon you'll end up with a nice little knot like that. And that's called an improved clinch knot. And believe me, If you do it right, you can do it fast. Once you learn how to do it, you can do it fast. Never will it come untied, and the chances of you breaking that just aren't very good. So if you don't know how to tie that, go learn to tie this knot. For me, more times than not, particularly on a crankbait, for example, this is my go-to knot. So I hope that helps. Thanks.